Well, there you have it, just about ahead of 130 when you could be thinking, is that a par score? Is that below par? Well, it's always an interesting conundrum here in Chennai, and that's exactly why we've all gathered on Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partners, My 11th Circle. Let's just remind you of where the Mumbai Indians finished up. Remember, they lost the toss. They were asked to bat first. They seemed okay with it. And when Rohit Sharma and Surya Kumar Yadav were going, you were suddenly thinking, yes, a 150 type total is very much on the cards. But wickets continued to tumble in that last area where Mumbai last season and in previous years used to be very destructive. To try and piece this together, I'm in the company of Shaun Pollock and Pommie Mbangwa. Pommie, once again, Mumbai faltering at the fag end. But first reaction to that total in isolation.
The first reaction is one that I have to the pitch. I mean, I've got to give credit to the bowling of Punjab and say they bowled well and minimized on the bad balls, particularly right up at the front. They didn't give away too many. But the pitch was rather difficult. And it surprises me even more why they decided to field first, because it played slow. It played in the way that we've come to expect over there in Chennai. I say that, but perhaps conventional wisdom, perhaps the way to go about things these days has actually worked out in the right way if you're Punjab. It's not the way you'd go normally if a pitch is particularly slow. You want the best of it and then, have your opposition having slowed down a little bit. With 131, I think it allows them to perhaps pace their chase on a surface that's difficult.
Shaun, at the start of the game, we were mentioning an alarming figure of 18 wickets that Mumbai lost in the slogovers this season and the death this season, compared to just about 20 in the entire season last year. Now that figure has become 22. It's become 22. It is cause for alarm, isn't it? No matter what the surface.
Yeah, it is. It's just more surprising that they haven't been able to work out what the right game plan is. I mean, in many ways, those hitters at the bottom order don't have to be too inventive normally. They just stand and they've got such power. And if people miss their target, it just goes out the ground. But, through a lack of confidence, because they haven't been able to whack it out the ground. And it is a confidence game down there. You just sort of watch the ball as closely as you can and swing as hard as you can. They have lost that ability to really plug home the advantage of putting pressure on those back-end bowlers in those last 4 overs. So it's been challenging for them. And I think Hardik Pandya in particular will be saying, goodbye to Chennai. I'm quite happy to see you go. Bring on Delhi. I don't care what the surface is like there. If it's low, whatever it may be, bring it on. And it's also interesting just to, sometimes you look at people, and in many ways, Hardik Pandya has looked like the Iceman at the back end. He's got no emotion on his face. He stands like Thor and just smashes balls out the ground. And you often sit there and feel sympathetic for the bowlers. Just having a look at his demeanor now as he walks off, he almost looks a little bit embarrassed, and it's a smile as if, I can't believe I haven't got it right again. And you sit and have a little bit of sympathy for him, because it hasn't been a nice time for him. And he hasn't been able to achieve what we know he's capable of. So it is the roller coaster of international or top division cricket, that you have many times where things go according to plan, but there's also lots of opportunities where you have to go in the dressing room and just suck it up because you haven't been able to do the job. But I'm sure this is not the last of him in this IPL. As the surfaces change, as he goes to the tournament, we'll see some fireworks. But for now, it's a tough place for him to be in.
Yeah, demeanor's right, Pommie. I think when we saw him walk off, his brother walked on, sort of gave him a pat on the back, the kind of pat you normally give a guy who's walked off with 50 of 20 balls. But he was just trying to say, look, I know how you feel. We can feel you there.
Yeah, and their job, the guys who come in at the back end and can hit it out the ground, is a tough job. In times past, we'd look at it and we'd think, it wasn't so scientific, they'd just walk in there, see ball, hit ball, and away it went out the ground, right? But when you have someone like Hardik Pandya walk in there, and of the 4 balls at a time where he's trying to smash it, he's getting 1 off 4. You're getting people like Pollard being caught on the fence. And there are no fields big enough for these guys. They can clear any fence. So the very fact that they're not managing to get any timing at all in their attempts with their stroke making and their six hitting, it shows you there's an issue. Not an issue for just them, an issue for everyone. And Polly puts it quite nicely to say he's baffled by the fact that they haven't quite worked it out. They're still trying to force this is what we do at the end, and so this is what we're gonna do, and it's not coming off. So yeah, that is a problem. However, we sit here 131. Is it enough? I don't think we can sit and say definitely not enough, because we see the difficulty that is on that surface. I would still think it's a bit below par. 140 would make me feel a little bit more comfortable naturally, but you'd hope they'd have been able to play that bit better and get to about 150 and think that was a fair total. As it stands, kind of have to wait and see. But yeah, it's a tough surface and tough for everyone.
To put it in
Gautam,
context,
what I would add about the hitting ability at the back end there is, I mean, that last delivery that Hardik Pandya got was perfect. I mean, it really was a slot delivery. It wasn't like it was a Yorker or back of a length one that gripped. And it is funny how over your career you learn the art of trying to be successful on different surfaces. And I know when we went to India and a lot of the subcontinent places, Lance Klusener's one tip to us when he was hitting his fine hitting form was, when we used to practice, we almost used to practice to try and hit the top of the side screen. So you say, well, what do you mean the top of the side screen? So when we looked to hit on those slow surfaces, we were looking to hit it as flat as we could, because if it just stopped and you got a little bit more elevation than you hoped, it would still have enough to carry. And that's the adjustment. Whereas in South Africa, you're almost looking to, just swing and connect it on the up. There, you've almost got to look like you're going to hit it down, almost like hit it back at the umpire. And then eventually with the slowness of the surface and, with it grabbing in the pitch, it tends to go a little bit higher than you expect. And that's why I'm saying a little bit surprised that maybe they just haven't worked it out as to what they need to do in order to still be power enough. I mean, if you look at the Villiers, there was a lot of slap shots that he plays rather than the ones he's looking to go. It's a slap shot so that it comes out flat. If it just stops or bounces, it doesn't get whacked up straight into the air. Because how many people have we seen just pop it up in the air and get caught?
Yeah, normal arc at Mumbai and different arc at Chennai.
Yeah, exactly. And in Mumbai, just as long as you're swinging, it's going to go. Whereas you actually have to deliberately try and hit it flatter on the slower pitches.
Yep, that's a good little reference to Zulu Klusener there, and I think we saw the difference illustrated not just with Hardik Pandya here, but a comparison of how Andre Russell batted in Chennai, and then how he enjoyed it a lot more in Mumbai with that hitting arc of his in terms of where he goes. But the scores that we mentioned, to put it in perspective, that 120 to 140 type score, couple of occasions here have been chased down. They've actually been chased down, and the teams at the receiving end have been Mumbai and Punjab, respectively, the two teams who are playing out here. So they'll know what it is to successfully or unsuccessfully put on a total of this nature, Pommie.
Yeah, look, again, I'll speak about the fact that when you turn up on these pitches in Chennai, the expectation is that you want to make other teams chase. And the reason you want to do that is because the surface is difficult and it doesn't get better. In fact, if anything, it get more difficult unless there's dew, which we said at the start of the game. That might be a reason that they're going away. Something else that I said it inadvertently might work in their favor is that when a score is 131 as it is here, there is not the pressure of expectancy. There is not the pressure of, well, what is a good T20 total? You can't get less than 145, 150, even on a pitch that's not so good. Think about in a test match as well, when a team's trying to set a score in the fourth innings. Some people will sit there and go, they've got 280, that's more than enough. They'll bowl them out for 160, but the team bats on and wants to get 300, 320 and try and be sure that they're safe. So here with Rahul deciding to field first, what he has is a managing of what they need to get, a managing of a run rate. So no, hey, you have to bat faster than you were batting before. No, you've got to go out there and play shots. You just need one boundary and over, and you can even allow it to go out a little bit because you're managing the run rate according to who's out, who's not, who's in, and how are you looking as you go towards the back end.
Quick one, in terms of the way Rohit and Surya batted, will the Punjab batsmen tell themselves, look, did they bat on a different pitch, or were they just the two batsmen who adapted best?
I think Surya Kumar Yadav's in good touch. So I think he was just going there feeling confident. Rohit started to grow into the role. I mean, he was really slow to get going, but developed and got to understand the surface. That's why it's getting interesting to see what Punjab Kings decide to do about the approach. I think there's two ways they can do it. Either they can just look to bat normally and absorb and then continue to knock it around, or else what they can go, and maybe we can even look at the innings progression of the Mumbai team as to what they did throughout. I mean, what were they? Just a 21 off the 6 overs, and I think it was the lowest score after 10 overs. The other way you can do it is maybe a change of personnel. So start with the top two. You got Cramps who could do the job, but get ahead of the game. So listen, I want in 6 overs while everyone's up, we take some risks. We say, okay, let's try and get to 40, try and get to 50 as quickly as we can. And then once we've done that, okay, let's now look to knock it around. And then it's risk-free. And when Chahar comes in the middle, you don't have to take him on. You don't have to risk trying to do anything silly. So that could be the option.
And having lengthened that batting order, perhaps they can go that route. I'd offer, though, that if you're Mumbai, you want them to come with that approach because you back the bowlers to be able to take wickets against guys who are trying to go at them on a surface that's slow. So, yeah, it could be an interesting...
I think you would pick the personnel who you go after, though. Like, I wouldn't be going after Bumrah. I'd rather try and go after Bolt. That would be of the two if they start. So I think you need to be clever about doing it. But if you possibly can, all the pressure gets taken off and you can just bat normally.
Well, interesting. I'm sure they would have looked at other games. Delhi were the one team who approached that chase in a more cautious manner, unlike, say, a team like Kolkata who have sort of went far too hard at it. So I think they learned from other teams. But personnel is interesting, both in terms of who goes out there to bat. Maybe just a final thought in terms of what you think the score would be, because remember, we were miles off the mark. And I think this will be an interesting exercise in not just how we feel Punjab will approach, but how we think they should approach these 6 overs. So, Pommie, you want to go first with a 6-over score for Punjab that you predict, but of course, do think that would be right?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 35.
I'm going to push it a little bit further. I'm going to go 42.
Right, 35-42. Once again, it's very similar to that kind of 20-over total that we talked about. Could it be less than that if they lose wickets? Well, I'd hate to slip in at 39 and say I played safe. So I'll go lower. I'll go for 30. I'll go for 30. They'll play the safe approach, so I cannot
give a sucker an even break. You've got to be ruthless. Come on, Gautam. Go in the middle there if you want. I can see you want to.
All right, fine. I'll go in the middle then. I'll stick nicely in the middle at 39. I'll stick nicely in the middle at 39.
Don't worry about anybody else.
But yeah, it just shows that it's not likely to be a crazy approach. But with someone like Chris Gale in that top 3, Nicholas Puran will be wondering, what do I have to do to buy a run? But and of course, KL Rahul and Mayank Agarwal do generally have a stroke-making approach. It should be a cracking first 6 overs, a cracking first 10 overs, in fact, to establish where this match is headed. We will report everything at the 10th over on Cricbuzz Combox, and of course, see you all for an analysis at the end. Thank you to Pommie. Thank you to Shaun. This is Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle.